Hey kids, are you having problems with your D major scale in open position? Yep, it happens to all of us, so it's okay. I just want to talk about the fingering that you find in most instruction books and why that is, and then give you a slightly easier, or let's say, a less strenuous or perhaps more efficient fingering, and then and also talk about why this fingering that we're talking about from D major, and then talk about how to get yourself to work on your hands so that you can do this abduction of your fingers that's required. So let's get into it. So, D major scale in so many guitar books and instruction books is supposed to look like this. D, Re with the second finger, Mi with the fourth finger. Oh, I'm confusing lots of Europeans now because I'm doing movable do, so I'm not going to do that, because in America we talk about do is always the tonic of the scale. But I'm not going to confuse people, so we'll just do note names. So there's D, E, F sharp, open G, A, B, C sharp, D. And something that I do that I was taught by a wonderful teacher by the name of Larry Schnitzler is that I teach people to actually use their third and fourth fingers at the third fret to avoid in the beginning this extension. So the tricky part about this D major scale is being able to get this. It's really kind of an extension. If you look, I'm really abducting the fingers away from each other to get to that place. And in order to facilitate this, this is what you really need to do. So one is that this is definitely a guitar technique. So I talk about technique with my students and say, this is mandolin technique with the thumb over the neck. And then this is guitar technique with the thumb behind the neck. And both are useful to know and very important to know. There, you can see that there. Now, the trick is, guitar technique you want to use if you're playing on the bass strings. Any of the wound strings, you're probably going to need guitar technique much of the time. There's times when you won't, but I should just briefly say, because I've touched on it, is that guitar technique tends to have the neck of the guitar tilted up at almost a 45-degree angle, with the headstock almost level with your eyes, the top tuner maybe, and somewhere up there. Whereas mandolin technique has the neck tilted almost parallel to the ground, thus making the thumb over technique very, very easy. A lot of people don't talk about this in guitar instruction books because they were written by guitarists, often classical guitarists, who were not versed in the idea of mandolin technique or the whole idea of using that technique on a guitar. But when guitar came to America and C.F. Martin started building these skinny neck steel string guitars, people started playing guitars all kinds of ways. They were playing mandolins. The real truth of the matter is, when Elvis Presley popularized the guitar, lots of mandolin teachers started offering guitar lessons. There's a shorthand to remember it. Anyway, so we have a flexible guitar technique. Sometimes we use this mandolin technique, and sometimes we use more guitar technique. And what I'm getting at is this guitar technique is challenging because you've got to do this abduction of the fingers, and I've got to keep my second finger way back here at the second fret. If I do this a little bit differently, with the neck tilted up, it makes it easier for me to have my thumb low on the neck here. Sorry, the light's a little dark, but yep. So it makes it easier to have the thumb lower, and it may make that easier, but you may not you may not hold your guitar that way, and you may be looking for other solutions. So here is the quote-unquote cheat or mandolin technique, is that I would just go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to use my first finger at the second fret. I'm going to move into second position. And so I'm just going to use my first finger at all those notes at the second fret. For many songs and many things, there's no disadvantage to that. And while you're working on this ability to abduct your fingers away from each other, and especially if you hold your guitar so that the neck is more parallel to the ground, you'll see it's much more practical and easier and more relaxed to do it this way. And that's what you want, is to be efficient and relaxed. Now, if you want to work on this, and the reason why guitar teachers want you to work on this is because eventually you're going to need these extensions to do fancy things up the neck, and to reach, 3 or 4, even 4 frets away. But what I might suggest in order to work on that is start high on the neck and do what I can't remember what teacher taught me as a sort of an inchworming technique. So you work on the abduction. That's when you take the fingers away from each other. You abduct them. So I'm just going to start here at the 12th fret. I realize I'm going kind of fast. And play at the 12th fret, then play at the 9th with the first finger. I'm just going to use either all my fingers or my first finger. Just make it simple, simple, simple. All my fingers. And then while I'm holding my 4th finger down, I'm just going to slide my first finger back. And then go to the first finger. And then do that again. And so gradually, as the frets get wider, you work on that abduction a little bit more. It gets a little bit harder as you go down. And the goal is to just work on keeping your fingers on their fingertips. And you're just working on technique, how to play the instrument. And so we've made the exercise very simple. It's just 1 finger per fret, and then slide the 4th finger down, and it's like sort of like an inchworm. Then you slide the first finger down, then the 4th finger comes down, and the first finger comes down. And you can gradually work on this ability to hold these notes while abducting the fingers away from each other, to the point where you can, once you get down here, and you'll find as it gets out the neck, it gets a little bit more difficult. But just like with exercise, you want to work on your form, you want to work on how you're doing it, and then increase the difficulty. So start at the top where the frets are close together, and just do, maybe just do a little bit of it, just a little bit. The main thing is to pay attention, to notice that you're not extra tense in any of these muscles in your hands, that you're using just a little bit of energy, that maybe you're using the weight of your forearm a little bit to help press the strings down is good, that you're not pressing too hard with your thumb, that you're relaxed. You want to make sure that you're breathing, because, that tends to be important. And then, if you want to, you can challenge yourself by saying, hey, I'm just going to go from the 2nd finger to the 4th finger. Now, this is challenging, so I wouldn't recommend this at first, but, there. So I'm going from 12 to 10, and then, I've got to just slip this in there, 11 to 9. And maybe that's enough the first day. Or if you have a hard time fitting all your fingers in there, just start a little bit lower. So you're going, I'm going 9, 7, 8, 6. And notice, because I'm playing on the D string, I've got my thumb lower. Yeah, I'm not trying to do this mandolin technique. I would really have a hard time getting all those places mandolin technique. Mandolins only have 4 strings, the neck's only that wide. 4 dual courses, lest YouTube get excited about correcting me. Okay, one more thing about mandolin technique, and then I gotta go, is if I was doing this on the first string, I wouldn't care. I could totally do mandolin technique. And it's easy and relaxed. I could even go 1, 2, 3, 4 frets. It's really about getting to these bass strings that makes this a challenge. And so that's where you want to think about classical guitar technique. You might want to think about taking some really basic classical guitar lessons from a good teacher who really understands technique and comes from one of the important lineages of the instrument. And so then you'll get to the point where you can do this abduction and have the fourth finger all the way to the fourth fret and the second finger behind the second fret with ease, or shall we say, as little effort as possible. But in the meantime, because you're going to want to play some things in D, go ahead and use your first finger at the second fret and work on that music, because it ends up, you'll end up having various fingerings for lots of different things. Guitarists tend to have, depending upon the song and how the melody goes, you might use one fingering or another. Okay. If you're on time and you're in tune, you're okay. Have a good time.